Good morning. Thank you for coming. 9 a.m. in the morning, no one's going to come, and you came. Who was here last year at my last presentation? Okay. You may know which part of the presentation objects can become flying. So if there's incoming, just duck. All right. I am a storyteller, and I'm going to give a presentation about important elements of characterization, 5 important elements, and use stories to embellish my topics. The first story is called Merlin's Journal. Many people believe that Merlin lived life backwards. Now, he was famous because he was a key advisor to King Arthur. King Arthur of Camelot, the Round Table, the Knights of the Table for right and might, for right. And as Merlin would live his life backwards, this is a story about Merlin in high school. It may have been called Cadabra High. I am not certain. He's sitting at his easel working on his magic, and an administrator comes in. Merlin, it's your turn to take out the trash. Now, taking out the trash at a wizard school is no easy task. It's okay if you have the more advanced students, but when you have the yearling students, not all the spells are completely deactivated, and that trash bag is moving. There are giants, monsters, dragons, zips and zags, and lightning bolts, and magic potion, all kinds of things in that trash bag, and it is moving. When he goes into the room that has the trash bag, it is up to the ceiling, moving, and you can see tentacles and all kinds of noises inside that bag. And he knows that he needs to go ahead and reduce it down to size so he can manage it. He uses the reduction spell. It's now the size of a chair. Around the top of the trash bag is little frozen lightning bolts, zaps and zingies, that when they become inactivated, they can sting your feet. And so as he tries to close the trash bag, some of those fall off. Zing, 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 ouch, 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 ouch. Now, he knows there's several challenges in regards to throwing the trash away. One is leaks. He leans down under the trash bag and shoves an echo spell underneath the bag so if there's any holes, there will not be anything spilling out. There was a wizard who didn't realize as he was carrying the trash bag to the vacuum pit that he had a leak. And magic potion, love potion, was drizzling out of the bottom of the bag. He didn't find out until he was at the pit. He touched that magic potion. He was in love. Have you ever seen a wizard kissing the ground? It was embarrassing. They had to, sorry. You know, this job is doing the drinking. He was kissing the ground. It took a lot of effort for the masters to be able to stop him from kissing the ground. They had to dig up all the trail, all the dirt, the magical potion, and they put it under the bed of a woman who complained of insomnia. She loves to sleep now. The other thing is that in this magical bag have you ever smelled a half-conjured demon that's been fermenting for over a week? Woo, woo. Finally, he closes the bag, gets the fumes contained, and then he starts probing the bag. He's looking for a giant. He finds a giant, taps his head, and the giant is 80% air. It inflates. A little bit irritated, and as the giant inflates, the bag begins to rise. Now, you have to be careful that you do not tap the giant's head too hard. One student whacked the giant. The giant got all mad, started hitting its neighbors, the dragons, the monsters, and everyone started fighting the bag, and the giant started inflating the bag, and soon the student tried to contain it, and there's one here, sir. And it was going higher and higher, and he was hanging, and the bag, and he's going, ah! You know, he's trying to hang on. And the school had to get some students that were archers, and they had to shoot the bag down. All those monsters and dragons and everything landed on the ground. It took a week to cover it up. They made a school project of it. So he knows to only tap the giant once. Ma'am? Up here. Okay. And, that's right. And so he's carrying the bag, or at least directing the bag, but it's floating, to the trash pit, vacuum pit. Finally, just feet away from the pit, the giant burps. Burp! Down goes the bag. It splits down the bottom middle. He knows that if those creatures exit the bag, they'll become normal size and there'll be chaos. He's got to convince that bag to go into the pit. He levitates over on top of the vacuum pit. He starts challenging the critters. Ah! 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 Nothing. So, that got their attention. That bag pivots, wobbles, down into the pit. Everybody. You know, it'd be okay to empty the trash if you had a better trash bag. You know, if you created a good, strong trash bag, did echo spells on the inside and the outside, you know, and had a good bag, wouldn't that make all the other students glad? He decides to make a school project of it. So he decides to go back to class. He has a school project in mind that's going to make him some money. And that is the story of Merlin's journal. Thank you. I want to make this type really big, not having a board or anything. I got ambitious. We're going to talk about challenges, physical and mental, fire in the belly. Yes, I had to get that approved by the fire inspector. Place can be a character, inciting incident, obstacles. There's a lot more to character than that, but these are very important elements to me. Okay. When you think of personal challenges, you want to have at least a double fist. Physical, mental, emotional, you know, a double fist and multiple fists to be able to have the character go through multiple challenges. Otherwise, life is easy, and who would want that? Me. Okay. There were historical figures. Last year I talked about movies and books. Today, history. John Adams' personality was abrasive, and he was disliked. A key founding father that contributed a lot to the founding of America was irritating. And people had a hard time interacting with him. But he was so passionate and so dedicated to the cause that he contributed a lot to the founding of America. Okay? My assistant and timer, please be ready. Who is Helen Keller? See who raises a hand. Okay, right here, ma'am. Kim, okay. No. Yeah, watch.
I just had my eyes done.
Thank you.
She was a blind and deaf individual who went on to advocate for accommodation and representation for people like her.
Very good. I mean, can you imagine a deaf and blind lady giving presentations? Thank you. Julius Caesar had seizures. Walt Disney was rumored to have dyslexics. Dyslexic?
Dyslexic.
That too.
Yeah.
Beethoven started losing his hearing at 28. All that wonderful music, all that composition, and he eventually could not hear his own compositions. You know, speaking of Beethoven, do you know what Beethoven's favorite fruit is?
Banana.
Yes! Thank you. I'm glad to know that you take your fruits and vegetables. Now, another trait of challenges for a person is betrayal. Benedict Arnold had an ego. He thought that he should have been promoted in George Washington's army more than he was. And because I'm not being treated right, he betrayed West Point and America. Another example of betrayal is that there's a guy, there's a really wealthy guy that when he dies, he wants to take all his money with him. He has his priest, gives a third of his money to his priest, gives a third amount of his money to his doctor, and a third of his savings to his lawyer. When the guy eventually dies, he's supposed to put his money back into the casket so he can take it with him. When the priest comes to the casket, when the guy dies, he has tears in his eyes, and he puts money into the casket, a bag. And then when the doctor comes up, he's really sad, puts money into the casket. The lawyer comes up, puts his bag into the casket. As they're driving home, carpooling back away from the funeral, the lawyer says, "Priest, why were you so sad?" "I have to admit, I did not give all the money back. There was an orphanage that the children were starving. I used some of the money to save the kids." "What about you?" The doctor, the priest, the minister, what's his name? The banker. No, the lawyer. Oh, same thing. Oh, excuse me. Did I say that in my outside voice? And the lawyer says, "Well, doctor, why were you so sad?" "I have to admit, there was a patient that needed work that I could not do alone. I used some of his money to save a person's life." "That's outrageous! I can't believe you guys did that." The priest and the doctor say, "Well, what'd you do?" "I wrote a check for the full amount and put it in the casket." Speaking of kind of questionable alliances, there's a story about the Long Ranger. Long Ranger was called Kemosabe by Tonto, the Indian. One time they were traveling together and a whole bunch of other Indians were chasing them. Tonto says, "Don't worry, Kemosabe, we're okay." They're going, the Indians are getting closer. They're going, the Indians are getting closer. "Don't worry, Kemosabe, we're okay." Finally, Tonto and the Long Ranger are circled by Indians. And Tonto turns to the Long Ranger and says, "Well, paleface, what you gonna do now?" There is a story called Minor Concerns. Artist, how you doing? Okay.
Oh, finished?
Not yet. Well, a part of it. At least show some of it. He walks trees. What he does, now see, she just thought she could relax.
Yeah.
But what the wizard does, and thank you, ma'am, and I'll let you finish once we're done. He uses the trunk of the tree as his chair, all the branches of the tree around him, and then he uses the branches of the trees to walk the tree. And this illustrator thought that she could relax and take it easy, and I put her to work. Because that's what friends are for. Thank you.
At least, yeah.
And he was arrogant. When he was commissioned to save some miners that were in a collapsed mine, he asked, "Well, why are you choosing a tree, wizard? I manipulate wood, not ground. You were the cheapest." Oh, insult to an arrogant wizard. As he goes into the mine, he finds out he has claustrophobia. And all of a sudden, this task becomes much more complicated. Is your character, thank you, ma'am.
See if I can set it up.
Thank you, ma'am. Is your character broken? Of course I use a branch that can't.
Stick.
Okay, delegate. Break your character. Break your character. All right. Man, what talk about a broken illustration? Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I'll leave it off until you.
Washington, George Washington, was a proud man. He always was frustrated that the soldiers of the British Army were not increased in rank in America as they were increased in rank if you came from Britain. And he was frustrated by that. And then when the Congress had him manage the 13 colony armies, protect your colonies. Oh, sorry, we don't have money for food. We don't have money for shoes. We don't have money for pay. Please protect our countries. Because there were 13 countries, 13 colonies. He was very proud, but I tell you, he had a hard time keeping those men together because of a lack of resources. He eventually had to turn to God for inspiration and help. Fire in the belly is the next one. John Adams was a lawyer in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1700s. He was no friend to the British. There was a confrontation between the British and the colonists. The colonists started throwing glass, rocks, other things to the soldiers to provoke them. There was a confrontation. Several people were killed on both sides. The British came to John Adams, a lawyer, and says, we need to be defended. He does not like the British, but the fire in his belly was that everyone deserves a just trial. And even though he didn't like them, he defended them, and they got an honest trial. Who knows, in Tiananmen Square in 1989, hundreds of Chinese were killed, murdered in the square. There was a guy in the square called Tank Man. Who knows about Tank Man? Okay, behind you, next to you. Who knows Tank Man?
Yeah.
Okay, who's Tank Man?
He's a man who was photographed next to, like in front of the tank, and during the conflict, and we still don't know who he is, or we've never been identified, because if he had been, he probably wouldn't be alive anymore.
No,
So
agreed.
So yeah, it's just kind of this mysterious figure that we.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't know.
When he moved, the tank moved. There was a whole row of tanks. He just got to the front one, and they had that tank directed at him. Okay, thank you. Another person, Desmond Doss. He was labeled a coward. He was a pacifist, but he still served in the army. The soldiers around him says, you're a coward. You're afraid. You're not willing to protect America. There was a major attack, and under fire, he saved 75 men. He wouldn't fight, but he certainly had courage, and his name, Desmond Doss. Every year, the symposium has a dinner, and they have a guest speaker and all the fun events, concluding the symposium. And there was a scene in one of the books of where a soldier stood up against enormous odds on a wall and defended that wall. Who is a Tracy Hickman fan? Okay, if you by chance know about the scene, do you know about that scene?
Actually don't.
Oh man, it was so, well there's so few books to read. The scene was so inspiring to a soldier in Afghanistan that he faced a similar challenge of enormous odds and remembered that scene, and he borrowed the courage of a character and stood up against enormous odds. As a result, he got the Medal of Honor. He gave that Medal of Honor to Tracy Hickman. He got another award, and he gave that award to Margaret Weiss, because it was their books that inspired him to courage.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Is that him standing against basically the border guard with his pistol against like a tank battalion?
I never read the scene,
Oh, fair enough.
but I've got to, that's why I wanted to know if you read the book so I could read the book, because I want to read that scene. Can you imagine, I mean, real terror, and a scene from a book inspires you. How cool is that? Okay. In the Avengers, one of my favorite scenes in one of the Avengers is that Loki is being a stinker, and he's come to Germany, and he tells everyone, a big crowd, to kneel. There's one old man that refuses to kneel. Loki, you are made to be ruled. In the end, you will always kneel. The old man, not to men like you. There is no man like me. There will always men like you. Speaking of Loki, do you know what you call a pair of villainous twins? Loki likes. Can someone tell me about Rosa Parks and a bus? Okay, in the back.
I don't know if you're going to go over.
Throw it.
She was a black lady in the South who refused to give up her seat in the front of the bus when the segregation at that time said they had to sit in the back.
Thank you. Her courage, she was arrested, and her courage became a tidal wave of getting more rights for blacks in the South, and it just progressed. And in honor of her, who is, you're getting a lot of exercise. You know, these are 2 calories each for each step. Okay, who is I Have a Dream?
Martin Luther King Jr.
Stand up. Tell me about Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah, come closer.
Martin Luther King Jr. Basically led the civil rights movement, and he was an inspiration for people across the country about creating a environment or community where all people could be accepted.
Thank you. I mean, that's such a wonderful phrase that can be used over and over again. There's a story about one of the founding fathers, and I cannot find the reference. That makes this presentation more professional. Okay? See, this has a good look. Oh, there's another seat up here if you want. All right? A delegate in 1787, the Declaration of Independence. The British captured one of the delegates' son and says, if you don't deny the activities and your signature of the Declaration of Independence, we will kill your son. Look, I'll give myself up to you. You can kill me. Do not kill my son. We will kill your son. I can't deny the Declaration. Okay? Irina Sendler rescued 2,500 babies, kids, from the Polish Jewish ghetto, hiding them as she would exit each time. The Nazis eventually found out what she was doing, and they says, tell us who is who. I won't. They broke her legs. In the recent news a couple of years ago, there was 3 soldiers on a French train. A terrorist entered the train. Anyone know what happened from the news?
Terrorist didn't exit.
Okay, just a moment. Do it around her neck. She won't mind.
The terrorist didn't exit. The 3 soldiers defended those on the train and stopped the attack.
Whack! Yes. Not only 1 train, but 3 trains getting that terrorist taken care of. Thank you. When they were asked, why'd you do it? Well, it had to be done. Okay. The next presentation is place can be a character. Who knows about the Dust Bowl? Not maybe through personal experience, but okay, back behind right here. The one against the wall. Raise your hand again, please.
Oh, hello.
Being shy. Tell me about the Dust Bowl.
It was like back, I don't remember where, I just
Oh, okay. Thank you. The dust lasted for years. Sometimes if someone left their house and went to their barn, it was so heavy that you may not find your way home again. And breathing problems, couldn't feed the livestock, water. It got so bad in the West that it actually eventually reached Washington, the Dust Bowl. Okay? She thought she could just sit around. Tell me about the Depression. Who can speak from personal experience? All right, maybe not personal experience.
Tell you all about depression.
Front row. And who knows about who can tell me about the Depression? Okay, thank you.
Just from the stories that my parents used to tell me, they're always being very, very careful, counting every penny and saving every little bit of soap and recycling soap and recycling toothpaste and drying your clothes outside. And my grandpa had to put cardboard in his shoes when he went to the trains to pick up coal off the trains to bring it home to burn for his family, and he just didn't have
Thank you.
money.
I didn't know about the toothpaste. Recycling toothpaste? Okay. When the pioneers, thank you, ma'am. While the pioneers were crossing the plains, they had a daily meals, 8 ounces of flour, and a piece of bison. That was their daily allotment. To me, that'd be a snack, and that's their full meal. And then, of course, they have to go ahead and go up the mountains and push their wagons and stop them from going down too fast. Okay. The Boston Tea Party got ticked, threw a whole bunch of tea into the harbor because they had taxes without representation and bills they didn't want. Can we relate to that today? With a 90 billion bill. Before that, 100 and something bill. Hey, we like it all. We've got plenty of money. Not. You know, monopoly money is coming in good form. There is one of the former founders of Life, the Universe, and Everything was Shane Bell. He was nominated multiple times for Nebulous. He was a very talented writer and also a cool guy. He wrote a story called Nikoji. Cora? Nikoji. Okay, I was close, kinda. Nikoji. She knows who Shane is, and he's one of the founding fathers of the, here you go. Okay, founding fathers of the Life, the Universe, and Everything. In this story, the tides every night would rise 30 feet or more. And the people had to live in the trees and do things in the trees to survive. That world was a key component of the characters' lives. Can someone tell me an example in their story where the environment was a key component to your story, an influence to your story? Does anyone have environment as part of your story? Yes, ma'am.
So I have a story right now that I'm working on that is like modern fairy tales and fantasy and like witches and the werewolves and stuff. And the main location is this forest that never ends and is expanded or decreased depending on how much space these creatures actually need. And so it's filled to the brim with roving oceans and high top mountains. And it just never ends. And that's like the whole point of it, that like however much they need, they can have, as long as they respect it.
That could be something that could be a modern day recommendation. Thank you, ma'am. For those that did come last year. Ah! Wah! Good job. She went. Wah! I do these in honor of an inciting incident. You can send him back. Inciting incident. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, a Japanese naval officer, Iskaro Yasumoto, and I'm sure I pronounced that very accurately, I fear all that we have done is awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. Okay? Some of you are too young whippersnappers to remember this, but some of you more mature audiences. Who can tell me about 9/11? Okay? Okay, come on up and meet her halfway. I mean, you know, kind of meet her halfway.
It was when a bunch of individuals decided they didn't like the states and hijacked several planes, crashed two of them into the Twin Towers, one into the Pentagon and one crashed.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Ben Franklin was ambassador to England. He was currently hired as the Postmaster General for England for the colonies. And he shared some public letters back home. Parliament was furious at what he did. He stood in front of Parliament and they attacked and attacked. He was fired as the Postmaster General. He was accused of being a traitor, and he stood there silently. He was, prior to that time, he did not want Britain and the colonies to separate. He wanted them to stay together. At that point, when they ridiculed him, he became a patriot. That inciting incident was a turning point in his life. When I say, thank you, you know, would you just sit down? Okay. When I say Houston, we have a problem. What am I talking about? Oh, okay. Who said it up here? Stand up.
Apollo 13.
Okay, give me details.
All right. Well.
Keep it down to two. Keep it down to 3 hours. No.
I could probably do it within one, but yeah. All right.
Okay.
Basically, it was one of the missions to the moon. They had all sorts of problems start happening on their spacecraft and the ground control. Yeah, they had to jimmy rig a bunch of things and tell them how to jimmy rig it up in space so that they might possibly not die. And hey, they didn't die.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. I mean, can you imagine I having heat and then all the, and what was interesting about, I like watching the movie Apollo 13, because not only did they have problems on the ship, they had to get a whole bunch of people, guys and gals, to brainstorm on how to fix those problems and how to, you know, put a square hole into a round hole and how the two work. Okay? Speaking of inciting incidents, this story is called Sticky Fingers. My brother tells me I'm a tattletale. No, I'm not. My brother refuses to brush his teeth. He comes to dinner. His breath is so foul, and I'm not talking about the birds. His mouth is so foul that it stinks up the whole kitchen. My mom says, "Brandon, go brush your teeth." And he says, "I did, Mom." "Well, brush them again." He goes back, comes back, his mouth's wet, but his mouth still reeks. It is so bad that as the nights pass, dinner after dinner after dinner, Mom starts putting planks into the table, separating Brandon and Mom for dinner. He goes to school. There is a bully that likes to go ahead and give him a hard time. The bully comes up. Brandon says, "Stop bothering me." He singes the eyebrows of the bully. "Stop picking on me," the bully says, and he runs away. Brandon goes to the library, sits down reading a book. Something is burning. The librarian comes to investigate. The corners of the book that Brandon is reading is curling, and the pages are discoloring. His foul breath is singeing the paper. The librarian, Brandon, if you can't take care of the library equipment, leave the library. He goes to class. He finds that the seating arrangements have all been changed. All the students have their desks in the corner, and his chair's all by itself because of his breath. Now he's getting really depressed, but Friday night is baseball night. He goes to the field. He goes toward the coach to find out his position. Outfield! Goes out to the outfield. I don't understand it, but a lot of baseball players like to spit. Brandon is no exception. He spits. Liquid fire erupts from his mouth, torches the ground, and starts burning the grass. Fire! 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 Other players, fire! 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 The coach turns on the sprinkler. Out of the game, the coach says. And that could be an inciting incident of Brandon's breath. Okay. Another inciting incident, okay. In speaking of Houston in the space program, I actually read a book about anti-gravity, and I just couldn't put it down.
So uplifting.
It is, yes. Punish me more. Punish me more. Thank you. Obstacles. Okay. I learned about this event of NASA from another storyteller. When NASA was given the assignment to deliver the roving vehicle Perseverance to Mars, they expected to use rockets to land the rover onto the surface of the planet. But then their budget was severely cut. What could they do now? They then came up with the idea that they covered the entire exterior of the rover with balloons so that it actually bounced across the surface of Mars instead of coming down through rockets. You know, thank you. You know, it makes you wonder the ingenuity that characters have. Oh, it's brilliant. Like, I was so proud when I had this wizard walking his trees, because I just love the visual image. Who has a story where a character was so smart he just came up with a brilliant idea? Who has a story of a brilliant idea? Or not the plot, but where a character thought themselves out of a box? They're hard to come by. Okay, go ahead. And don't be shy. Raise that hand, everybody. Raise that hand. Everybody, raise it. Oh, man. You guys need some chocolate in the morning. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, my character is caught in a bind where he thinks that he doesn't have an important job, or he thinks that he doesn't have a lot of fun for their summer to be able to report, and he lies about it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. When I say, no, don't want you to rest. When I say squirrel from the movie Up, what does that mean? And raise your hand strong. Okay, corner. Okay, come forward, ma'am. Come up and be counted. Squirrel.
It pretty much means, I'm distracted.
Thank you. Do any of our characters ever get distracted? Yes. Okay. Since we're running out of time, I guess I won't be able to. I was going to tell another story called Sticky Fingers, but no room in the inn. Okay. Now, a lot of times we have challenges, and it's like climbing a mountain. And speaking of a mountain, never forget how beautiful the mountains are. You don't want to take them for granted. I wanted to ground the reader.
Just don't
Okay.
get stoned while doing it.
What's that?
Just don't get stoned while doing it.
Okay, I want some more puns. I like puns. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
You had a rocky start.
Yes. Okay. A little what? Shake. Okay, earthquake. Okay. Well, I have to wrap up, so we'll skip on the other story. You have surveys. I would appreciate feedback on my surveys. If you could, send an email to me, or if you want to send a text, they're hard for me to read. My phone number is 801-367-4484. I have a 3-question survey about what you like and what you don't. I appreciate you coming. Thank you.